The market doesn't know what keeps you up at night. It doesn't know when you want to retire, and it doesn't know how old you are. The simple truth is, the market doesn't care. But if you care, you've tuned into the right place. You're listening to Investor Resources, bringing clarity to the confusing world of finance. Here are your hosts of Investor Resources, Don Creech and Perry Sykes.
I'm Don Creech.
And I'm Perry Sykes, and welcome to the Investor Resources Podcast.
Well, for you boomers, in 1967, you might remember James Bond movie, You Only Live Twice.
Yep.
We are a couple of generations downstream, or upstream, whichever way you want to count. And the new generation that would be equivalent to us watching James Bond and You Only Live Twice has a new title or motto, perhaps, called YOLO, You Only Live Once.
YOLO. You only live once. There you go.
YOLO, you only live once. That is the new game in town. And you say, what is it? How does that have anything to do with investing? Well, it is what is currently supporting our economy. Our economy supported by consumer spending, and the millennials and the Z generation have figured out their new game on how they are going to support us.
And they're going to support us by, spending. And a lot of them are citing, since COVID, their spending patterns have changed. And after COVID, the bottom line is, if I see something I want, I'm going to make that happen. If I want to do something, I'm going to go do it. And they're cutting back on food delivery. They're cutting back on restaurant trips. They're cutting back on clothes, and they're doing lots of travel. They're doing lots of experiences, and whatever you want to call it, they call it doom spending. They call it YOLOing. You only live once. But since COVID, people are out there spending, and they are what used to be we would look at as a big splurge as far as a trip goes, or concerts or shows, and now it's become mandatory spending that they're doing no matter what. And there's a lot of folks in America that are doing that right now.
Well, as a boomer, I remember reaching early earning years and beginning to do well and happy with how well I was doing. And these issues were, well, I'm okay. I deserve this. So I will go out and I'll splurge. But it wasn't a lifestyle of, let's see what else I can splurge on. Splurging happened periodically. Sometimes it involved credit, sometimes it involves saving up money. But at this point in time, the new younger generations who are coming into the workplace are kind of counting on the next binge item on their horizon, whether it's trip, clothes. I had a conversation with a plumber within the last couple of weeks whose wife had a birthday, and we're talking about wives. He said, my wife collects purses. I said, okay, I've seen that before, but sure. He says, no, I mean, she collects purses. And I got a phone call from a firm in Bellevue and said, we have this particular purse you might be interested in. He said, I went over and looked at it. It was $12,000.
Holy smokes.
And I thought, oh, he said, I started to walk out of the store. Then I looked it up online. I found it online for $28,000. I turned around and walked back and bought it. He said,
an investment. Yeah.
He's doing YOLO for his wife.
I'm telling you.
The funny part of that is, he said, she's a very timid person. She will never want to be seen in public with this purse because it's so expensive.
It's too valuable to carry. Yeah.
There's a place in our house where all these purses are basically locked up, and she just collects them. Okay, well, that's experience stuff. And that's changing the consumer behavior. Well, the consumer behavior is changing, but it's the way we look at consumer data as it
Yep.
affects market. Because in the market, we're looking for more traditional impact on what's driving profits, what sector of the market. And here we are moving into an economy that is sidestepping a recession. Growth is continuing, but it's spreading out into other sectors. And part of that other sector issue is that's where you want to be if they're strong enough to have leadership. And these two generations are the ones that are going to be driving that.
They are.
Boomers,
Yep.
boomers are concerned about preserving their money. They still want to take a trip, but they're not buying new furniture. They're not enthralled with new clothing. They're they already have their cars for the most part. They don't need to replace those.
Yep.
So where's the economic driver coming from? And it's these two younger generations as they come into the workforce. Their preferences are what we need to watch for because that will develop the leadership in the market.
And they are showing no signs of backing off. If you recall, one of the things the Fed used to talk about was consumer spending. They were trying to get consumer spending reduced. They don't talk about it anymore. I think they took their shot. Consumer spending is not going down, and so the Fed stopped talking about it. They said last year, spending on international travel and live entertainment grew 30%. 5 times the spending growth rate of anything else. But personal savings is down to the lowest level since 2008, since the Great Recession. So people are spending instead of saving, and that's continuing right into 2024. They are still out there spending, and that spending is growing. And so that is it's one of those metrics that is actually it's helping the economy, like you said, Don. That we're 70%. 70% of GDP is consumer spending, and it is very strong right now. And people, they believe we're psychologically damaged in COVID. COVID all of a sudden was, wow, what if we all die this year? So if there's something we want to do, if we can, we should do it sooner than later. And so they are spending a lot right now. Personal savings rate 3.6%. So it's down, and it's like they're liking it to the people that lived through the Depression. If you lived through the Depression, you stopped spending on anything frivolous. In fact, you saved everything from old newspapers to lightly used aluminum foil. You kept it all because you might need it someday. These two generations were shaped by COVID, and now they're doing the opposite. They're in YOLO spending mode, saying, "Hey, what if something else hits? What if we're locked down again? If I can go right now and I can afford it right now, I better go." And so they are spending like crazy, and it's the opposite of being a depression baby. They're the COVID generation, and man, they are going to recover those years they spent locked up.
Well, with COVID, it all basically the government said you're on the verge of dying if you don't do what we tell you to do and you don't get the jab, you don't stay
Yep.
home. This is a lethal infection. Well, they were swagging it, but it didn't turn out to be as critical in the aftermath. Looking at the data, it wasn't as
Right.
critical as we were led to believe. But
Yep.
using a phrase, it put the fear of God in the younger generation, many of whom don't fear God to begin with, but they do
Right.
fear dying without having gone to some exotic place or having the really special dinner out, the play. I have a granddaughter who traveled across country to watch a concert,
Yep.
something
That's
I would never have done in my life.
right. Right. Right now, all the news is about Taylor Swift and people following the Taylor Swift concert wherever it goes. But
That's where she
there's been
went.
deadheads. There's been deadheads for decades. It followed the Grateful Dead from the 1960s. It went from concert to concert and just followed them around the country. So that's always happened. But those were the fringe folks. Now it's the mainstream. Everybody's doing it, and they're saying that the fallout from COVID wasn't necessarily damaging financial to people. It was much more on the socialization and the travel and the human interaction side. They're trying to get that back. They're trying to spend money on what they missed. And so while they spent a couple of years not being able to spend money, boy, the backlash, if you will, to that is enormous. And they are out there right now trying to get back all those experiences plus some, because that's becoming a way of life, a choice that they're making to spend now and save later. And they're doing it in a very big way.
Well, it increased the sensitivity towards how valuable life is. And
Sure,
you only live
that's
once
true.
is
Yep,
reality. I mean, you can redo something when you've made a mistake, go back and attempt to do it differently and do it better. If you really messed up with somebody, you can apologize, but you don't get the time slot back. And that's what COVID took away from us. And all of a sudden, we have generations that are saying, that wasn't fair and it wasn't good, and I don't want to go there again. So let's deal with it this way. Now, with the
right.
spending that's going on, the one thing that has baffled the Fed and many financial analysts is that in spite of all this money that we're being spent on experience, we're not getting anything in our hand that we, it's not like buying a car or a house or a bar of gold.
Correct.
You can't show somebody what you spent your money on. You can tell them about it, and that's different. And in spite of this uptick in spending, there's still more cash on the sidelines. People have the money. Now, part of that's segmented by income strata. You know, the
Sure.
people at the top always have more than the people at the bottom. But it is a problem if we continue to see credit card debt rising and delinquencies rising. It's not so much the debt rises, it's delinquency rate rises. If you have rising income and you've got rising credit card balance and you're making your payments, at some point in time that could become a problem. But right
Correct.
now, the cash flow is adequate to
There. Yep.
generally meet these, and delinquency rates remain low.
Yep.
So we have more people traveling, which is a problem for the airlines, particularly with Boeing's problems. We have people who are canceling their trips if they find out they're on a Boeing flight. They don't want to be on a Boeing plane. That means Airbus is doing very, very well on orders and deliveries.
That's a prime example of brand damage from what used to be the gold standard for being on an airplane. You wanted to be on a Boeing airplane. Now everyone's wondering which Boeing airplane am I going to be on, and they're not quite as thrilled, to go there. But it's still they say that 22% of Americans right now are planning on vacationing in a foreign country in the next 6 months. So those are near record travel levels. Even with the pain it is to travel these days, people are still out there doing it. And so whether they're traveling in the United States to a concert or to a show on Broadway, they're still out there traveling and they're still out there spending. It's pretty amazing right now what's going on.
Well, last year, Ticketmaster posted a record $23 billion in sales, and they expect this year is going to top that. And so, as far as the shows that they book, they're basically booking out, and the tickets end up going, particularly in the aftermarket, they go for significant premiums.
Right.
You mentioned Taylor Swift. If you have some Taylor Swift tickets, and particularly if they're good seating, and you decide you don't want to go, you're going to get more than your money back.
It's okay. Somebody will pick those up right quick. Yeah.
One of the other things that's really changed here, but of course it's generational, is that the bulk of these travelers now are in their 20s.
Right.
It used to be the bulk of travelers were business people, 40s and 50s. And that's shifted. In fact, business people, for the most part, aren't doing a lot of travel because they've switched to podcasts or
Yep.
basically online conferences, Zoom calls. That's just
And my grandmother told all of us years and years ago. She's passed away now, but she said, "Do yourself a favor, travel when you're young. You're going to enjoy it more." And Gen Z is saying, "Okay, let's go." And they've never seen this many of 20-year-olds traveling this much. But like they said, they're foregoing the other stuff. They're stopping the constant restaurant feeds. They're stopping the expensive purse purchases, and they're saving up for trips, and they're doing it over and over again. A lot of times they're going on one this year and they're booking one for next year already because they're going to go again.
So while you're talking about your grandparents, I remember when my aunt and uncle, I called to invite them to come up to
Yeah.
Washington. And my aunt said, we don't travel anymore. We stay really close to our doctors.
Right. That becomes important. Yeah, that becomes more and more important. Yeah.
It does. But what's really important about this is that this is a fundamental change that's going on in the economy and the way money flows through the system, where demand is and where the response is going to be. If you want to know how this impacts your portfolio, we'd be free. We offer a free analysis. We look at what's going on in the portfolio structure from where's money flowing, where is the magnet for money in the marketplace, and that's where portfolios should be focused. And that's how we manage portfolios. And if you're concerned about yours perhaps not being finely tuned enough for these changes going on in the economy, contact us. And all we need is a list of what you own. We have call us. Send us an email. We'll put together a report and give you analysis of the things that you have that are weak and the things that perhaps you should give some extra consideration to because of these changes. Anyway, stay tuned. We will be having more information on our next podcast. Subscribe to below and you'll be sure to get the notice when it gets posted. Thanks for staying with us. Have a great day.